Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of the much anticipated VRB podcast. I'm your host Kev. Hello, we're back. We haven't all died, and I'm here with my good co-host from London town, Timothy Hibbs.
Kev, we've managed 2 episodes in the same calendar year.
I thought you were going to say month then, and I was going to call you a liar. But yes, you are right. 2023 has been a big year for VR, apparently. Yeah.
You can tell that because we've had more than 1 episode out this year.
Listen, we've been busy, and the world of VR has, up until very recently, not been. So I think we're very much in the right here.
That's fair. That's fair.
However, we've got some news to talk about. Obviously, since the last time we recorded, there has been a lot going on. Lots of, obviously, Summer Game Fest and multiple things surrounding that. Lots of new games have been coming out. PS VR 2 has had its second wave of games coming through, which obviously Tim will have some thoughts on. I have not been quite as involved in my VR playing recently. I will just say that up front at the start of the show. Reason being that we've had a very busy year of games that don't involve having a box on my face that I'm very interested in. Not the least of which recently have been Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16, which is just taken over my few hours that I have as a parent. It's going to be quiet on me from that front, but I have been keeping up with the news.
Well, I've also been playing a bit of Street Fighter 6 as well, so I haven't been entirely... But Kev, it's like absolutely perfect VR weather at the moment in England. Like, it's absolutely, like, it's not at all hot and muggy. It is the ideal time to strap a screen to your face, especially if you're playing energetic games, which we'll definitely come back to later in the show as well.
I have memories of, there was, when we started this podcast in 2020, was it? And that
I'm
was
going to say yes. Might have been 2019, but...
It was a beast of a summer, and I had my original Oculus Rift consumer version, and that thing really, it was so hard to play when it was even the slightest bit warm, and I didn't have like air conditioning blasting at my face, which I didn't at the time. And it caused some severe like claustrophobia problems, the amount of sweating I was doing inside the headset. And I distinctly remember yourself, me, and Diarmid were playing something. I think were we in Rec Room? Doing some like activities in Rec Room or something. We were doing something casually fun. I think it was Rec Room. And
sounds like the type of behaviour we'd get up to.
We were having good fun. I think we were doing some golf game. We were having a good laugh. But as fun as it was, I was having a miserable time behind the scenes because I was just driven. It's that thing where you're like, right, turn the desk fan on, lift your headset up just briefly. I'm going to do it with my glasses here for those who are watching a video. Up there, all right, get all that air on my eyes. Okay, and back again. It was not a comfortable experience.
I've been Googling like headset, sweatband type things and like what they've got available. And if anyone's got some good recommendations from that, I definitely need to buy something at the moment. So it's a bit more easily machine washable and that type of stuff. I bought some headbands when I had my PSVR 1 headset, and I haven't gone back and investigated that again. Remind myself and our listeners what headset you actually have now.
So I currently have a Meta Quest 2.
But do you find that is more comfortable than you were with the DK before? And I don't know if you think it more comfortable than the PSVR 1.
It's been a long time since I've worn a PSVR 1. The only time I ever did it was when I came up to your place for a night of VR fun.
Right.
So my memory of that is that it was quite comfortable, more so than the Oculus Rift I have at the time, but I don't know where it would lie in terms. The Quest is a lot more comfortable than the Rift was.
Yeah.
And likewise, the Rift I had was a lot more comfortable than the development kit I had before that.
Because a lot of people say that the headset's better ventilated than the PSVR 1. I don't really find that. I think the material that the headset's made out of is better at not soaking the sweat into that top bit of cushioning that you've got at the front of your head. But that means I've got to take it off and wipe it off with like a tissue to kind of get all the moisture off it, basically. Yeah. This isn't the conversation I was planning on opening with, but I think it's relevant to the VR market and to current weather conditions.
Everyone who's got or has had a VR headset knows exactly what we're talking about, and this is a conversation we've all had internally, if not with other people. Personally, I distinctly remember a time when I was looking around for third-party adaptations for my headsets where there's like fans that I could put inside my eye areas just to blow up and keep me nice and ventilated. Doesn't exist, probably for good reasons, if I'm honest.
Possibly so. Noise being one of them. One other thing, though, I forgot, and I haven't spoken about this elsewhere, so I'm just going to grab something and show you something that I also bought for my PSVR 2 headset. 1 second.
Okay.
I have grabbed this for 2 reasons. 1, because it's hopefully good consumer advice, and 2, because it comes with a funny story. But I bought one of these. And anyone that isn't watching the video thing, this is a little plastic thing that is a lens cover for both lenses. Now, anyone doesn't know, one of the differences between the PSVR 1 and the PSVR 2 is the PSVR 2 has OLED screens, and since I keep my headset out generally at the time, if I forget to rotate it in the right direction, I could have those lenses facing an open window, and if they get hit by the sun, which it could do, it could damage the lenses. Hence the fact I bought the lens covers. Now, not just the first time that I went to put this on after I bought them, but 2 times after I first bought them. I haven't made the mistake since. But the first 2 times after I bought them, I put the headset on and went, oh no, my headset's on. I can't see anything. What's going on? Is my headset broken? Oh my God. Is there something wrong? Oh no, lens caps. Okay, that's okay. I can take those off. Also, while we're on consumer advice as well, one of the other differences between PSVR 1 and PSVR 2 doesn't come with a nice little lens cloth that the original PSVR 2 comes with. If you have a PSVR 2 already, you know this already and have possibly had to buy some. But if you hadn't heard already and you're planning on buying a headset, make sure you pick up some microfiber cloths so that you can clean your screen, because I think this one needs even more cleaning than the previous one as well.
Everyone in 2023 should own at least 4 microfiber cloths for various reasons. That's my.
I bought a pack of 8, so yeah.
that is my consumer advice for the episode. Anyway, we should get on with our agenda here, because we've got some stuff to talk about, and we want to get through some of this, because we don't want a 3-hour podcast, which is always a risk when Tim and I get to chatting. So let's start with we're going to start with news this week. So straight hot off the press. As if it only happened this week. MetaQuest 3 got announced. I want to say 6 months ago. Yeah. But when did this get announced? It must have been a good 6 weeks ago now, right?
Yeah, they did it just before, because there was going to be. They actually did it before there was an event for it, I think. Is that right? They announced the headset.
They did.
Before they kind of.
Before their gaming showcase.
Before their gaming showcase.
And I think they got it out there because they knew Apple had something lined up. Whether they knew it was their headset reveal, who knows? But they knew Apple might unveil a headset, so let's get information on the Quest 3 out now.
I think if I remember correctly, they did it the same day, so I think it meant that they didn't have to go through the details and the basic specs of the headset. They could just concentrate on the games a bit more. And it also meant that they got a lot of attention before the event to get more people to tune into the event as well. So I think it's quite sensible. Quite a sensible way of doing things generally. So,
okay, the MetaQuest 3 got announced. It's coming in at, and we're doing UK prices here, obviously, it's coming in at £499.99, which is a hot price. A little bit cheaper than the PSVR 2. And obviously, for that price, you're getting a standalone product. So we'll go through the full list of specs here, and then we can discuss it in back and forth afterwards.
But not enough memory, but yeah.
So, 500 buckaroos. And then it's fully backward compatible. Your entire Quest library is going to work on this. The Quest 2 is getting a price reduction. So that's going back to its original price. So obviously they hiked all the prices up when the pandemic hit and everyone wanted a VR headset to try and escape from the misery of being stuck in their own one room. And then obviously they never brought those prices back down again until now. Now that their headset is somewhat obsolete. Slight aside there as well. In the past week or two, Meta have put out an update that they mentioned during this announcement for the Quest 2 that has increased the they've overclocked the CPU and GPU in the headset. So we're getting about 30% extra kind of oomph out of the same headset without having to pay anything extra. Yeah, I haven't actually played it since this launched, so I don't know whether the heat is gonna whether I need those fans now in my eyes. But we will figure that out. But it's for no cost at all, 30% power boost, pretty nice.
Yeah, that's quite good.
So the Quest 2 is getting a price reduction back down to 300 quid, 40% slimmer design. I'm very thankful for that, because my biggest issue with the Quest 2 has always been that it's very front heavy, especially if you don't have the Elite strap.
Yeah.
Which I've never bothered paying the money for.
Right, yeah.
It can get very uncomfortable with the amount of weight on the front of your head. It's got the new Snapdragon chipset, the 128 gigabyte internal storage on the base model. They haven't announced what another model will have, if indeed there will be. They've just called this the base model, so I think we can assume they're going to release one with more memory. Probably a 256, if I were to guess. 128 it doesn't sound great, but I've got 128 gig Quest 2 and I've never filled it up. But I am also one of those people that's got a good enough internet connection where I can, if I want something, I can just delete something and pull something else on. I don't need to have my entire library on the thing at the same time. I'm not one of those. So that's that. It's double the graphics performance over the Quest 2. I guess not quite double now that they've given the Quest 2 a 30% boost. But still,
possibly not,
decent improvement there. They've not said this themselves, but the pundits are speculating at least 120 hertz refresh rate and about a 20%
You'd think so, because
increase.
then again, gives parity with PSVR 2, so you would think that would probably be the case.
Yeah, you'd hope so. The Quest 2 is a 90 hertz. I've never had motion sickness issues with it, but I'm really difficult to get motion sick. I can think of maybe 2 games off the top of my head that have ever given me the slightest bit of motion sickness, and they're really old.
Yeah.
So 120 hertz. But I know some people do get really affected when it's sub 120. That'd be good for that. And also the guesses are coming in at about 20% increase on resolution per eye, which is not massive, but is definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
High fidelity color pass through. That's good. That's really good. That is something the PSVR doesn't have.
Yep.
I believe you lads are all black and white over there, right?
I mean, like the 1920s, but it's fine.
But still better than the Quest 2's one, which is just the IR camera. So it's a very weird thing. Like if someone walks into the room and has a remote control, and then it blinds you. So there's probably no eye tracking. This is not something they've explicitly mentioned.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any foveated rendering, which that's a slight downside. But you know what? Still, you're still getting a lot in this headset for the price. Yeah.
Not the least of which is the no cables, and I think that is going to be like. We'll go through the last 2 points here. New controllers that don't have tracking rings, and will now have haptics in there, so that's cool. The tracking rings, I actually like the tracking rings because it's always been useful.
Yeah, I do as well.
Just to kind of, when I'm done doing something, I can then go and then just drop the controllers onto my hand so that I can mangle around with my headset a little bit. But fiddle around with my headset a bit.
Yeah.
But no, apparently they're taking those away from us. We'll have to actually use wrist straps now, which is sad. But that's the world we live in. I'm sure they will feel better. And we will, of course, still have the wired and wireless Oculus link to your PC if you are of that persuasion, which is good. So you can still buy your VR games on PC, play it through the headset via a cable or wireless. I, to this day, have never managed to get the wireless to work well, but I'm told from other people that it can. I'm also not massively. Right. I've got a very long USB 3 cable that I can or USB-C cable that I can just plug into it and do my bits in that, and that's how I'm playing my Half-Life. So that's all of the specs there that we have access to at the moment. Obviously, the no foveated rendering is a little bit of a downside. Yeah, I think that is one thing that would have been really nice to have, but I suppose it would cost more money to put it in. Are people really going to care about it? Like in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure we care about it, but the Quest is a very popular VR headset. I wonder how many people actually are going to notice that. Probably not many, if I'm honest.
When you're not particularly fussed about graphical fidelity, it might make a difference. The only thing is, I would have thought that would have done wonders for making up for the slight lack of graphical fidelity anyway. I can understand for a cost-cutting or, keeping to a budget type thing that makes sense to not have it in there. And I think their approach with what they've gone with the headset is they haven't gone with foveated rendering, and as you say, they've got the color pass through. The other thing that allows them to do over and above what the PSVR 2 can do is something more akin to what the Apple headset, and we won't fully go into that at the moment, but more akin to that in having mixed reality capabilities.
Yep.
And I can see how that will gel well with the Quest and with the slightly more casual gaming audience. And I don't mean that as quite as derogatorily as that sounds, basically. But, you know, I can see the Quest audience taking to that quite well, basically.
Agreed, yeah. I think it's a really cool feature to have on there. So, I mean, do you want to hit any of these points? Like, do you have what's your kind of impression of this headset? Is it are you as a PSVR 2 owner, are you tempted?
Not in the slightest.
Not in the slightest.
That's a bit disingenuous, actually. Like, this makes me more keen on a Meta Quest than I would have been if just the 2 was out there. I kind of like the approach. The fact that they are taking a slightly different approach to PlayStation actually does appeal to me. As I said, this has got mixed reality capabilities that we're just not going to have on the PSVR. And I think maybe not having VR in the name at all is possibly why that makes a bit more sense for them as well. Whereas PlayStation have kind of hung their hat on VR at the moment. So that's the kind of approach they've got to go with, basically. And in some ways, that does appeal to me. The problem that it doesn't overcome for me is the word meta, basically. The fact that it is owned by the people that own Facebook, and the fact that I need a Meta account and all that stuff. Although, is that the case? I heard that might no longer be the case, that you don't need a Facebook account.
You don't need a Facebook account. You do need to log in somehow so it can, allow you to buy things and have a library. So you still need a Meta account.
I'm not entirely devoid of that because I do have an Instagram account, so I've practically got
You've
a
actually
Facebook
got one already.
account
So
anyway, basically.
Knowingly or not,
exactly.
You already probably have a Facebook account. Whether you use it or not is another question.
And not the one I previously had under the name Fakey McFakerson. But I also think that it's another feather in the cap that was a different approach that PlayStation took that is good for Quest, is the fact that your entire library from Quest 2 will continue to function in Quest 3. Whether developers then do an upgraded version and whether they charge for that or not will kind of probably be dependent per developer. But again, I think that's another feather in the cap of Quest. But as someone that existed in PSVR and has gone on to PSVR 2, that doesn't personally appeal to me in the slightest. But again, it's something from a business angle that makes sense. From a consumer standpoint, is a good thing and a reason why I can imagine a lot of Quest owners will look to upgrade to a Quest 3. Now, putting it back to you, is that something that you're tempted? Is this enough of an upgrade to tempt you into buying a new headset and upgrading the one you have?
Yeah, I think so. I may not be a day one adopter, but I'm certainly, I think to your point, no one should be going out and buying 2 £500 headsets these days. Like you need to pick a boat and jump on it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's important to note. The PSVR 2 has still not got the library that they are not getting behind that thing in a way that makes me think I need to put my money in that particular race. Whereas the Quest 3, I've not only got a library of games on it already, but I've also got a much larger library of games on my PC that I can. And I said this when we talked about the PSVR 2 last time. If that thing had the ability to hook to my PC, so I could use it as a third-party headset, I'd be on it like a bonnet, right? I'd be in there straight away. But it doesn't. They are very insistent, and the hacking, the God bless them, the community out there that are trying to hack that thing to bits and get it to actually work on a PC are still nowhere near getting it there. So, and they're not even confident themselves that they'll manage it. So, this is one of those things where this headset is to me a improved way to play all of my existing library, and also functionally become a more powerful platform for new games to launch on, which is good. Like we should be at a point with the Quest 3 where they may have enough oomph in it, to be honest, to put a lot of the games that have traditionally been PC only onto the headset now.
Yeah.
The Quest 2 wasn't quite
Yes.
there, but if this is twice as potent as the Quest 2 was, then, you know, I don't think we're going to see a Half-Life Alyx port because Valve have no need to do that. But there may be other games, things like Asgard's Wrath, for example, that can come across.
Yep. That's one of the things they showed off in the presentation as a game that I quite like the look of was Asgard's Wrath 2, wasn't it?
The sequel,
I think
yeah.
that was one of their main ones.
Yeah, the first game was... I never finished it. I got about 2/3 of the way through. It was a weird one. There's a lot of promise there. It was an interesting game. It was kind of half RTS and half first-person action game. It was very strange. And it was a really good proof of concept and one of the more classic examples of, you know, a AAA-esque game on a VR headset. Obviously, Half-Life Alyx blew everything else out of the water in the end, but Asgard's Wrath was... A lot of people got behind it, and I don't think wrongly so, because it was good. It was just, for me, it was just a bit too long doing the same thing over and over again.
So the fact that the sequel looks like to be an even longer game with slightly
hopefully
less
with a bit more variety
fidelity
in it. Yeah, let's hope it's got a bit
yeah.
more variety in it. I'll wait and see what the reviews come in saying. But we'll see. The thing is, lengthy games are not for me, and we've had this discussion before. What VR is all about.
Yes,
it's more of an arcade platform, and should be treated as such until someone figures out a way to do something akin to Half-Life Alyx, but possibly with more to do. Right. Also in the Meta Quest discussions, they much more recently announced the MetaQuest Plus subscription program. So this is not something they've said out loud, but very much based on the PlayStation Plus basic model, which is the one where PlayStation just give you 2 games every month, and if you're subscribed, you can claim them. If you're not, you can't. And if you ever cancel your subscription, you will lose access to those games. But obviously, resubbing, you'll get access to them again. Obviously, if you are not subscribed in a given month, and then you subscribe the following month, you will not get access to the games that you missed. So that does incentivize staying subscribed. This is coming in at $7.99 a month or £60 for the year. So the year is actually, that's like a 30-odd% saving. That's really good. If you want to pay for the full year outright. £8 a month, also not a terribly bad subscription price.
Yeah.
For 2 games a month. Obviously, this is very much depending on what your library currently looks like. For me, I haven't bought VR games en masse in a couple of years. It's very rare that I buy them these days. So
so that could actually work out quite well for you,
quite nicely. Yeah. At least give me a chance to try things that I wouldn't have otherwise wanted to spend, I don't know, 23 quid on or something, because $22.99 is a really popular price on the Quest store, and it's always just a little bit too much for me, and I wait for things to go on sale. So Pistol Whip, for example, which I've only ever played the demo of, and thought was all right, but I didn't want to spend 23 quid on it, is one of the 2 games coming up this first month. So that's cool. And obviously that's alongside Pixel Ripped to 1995, which I have played. I bought that day one.
Yep. Right.
And the August lineup they've already announced as well, which is a game I know you are quite fond of, with Walkabout Mini Golf.
Yep.
And something called Mother Gunship Forge, which is the worst name for a game I've ever heard. I watched a video of it earlier, and it looks like that it says it's not just another wave-based shooter, but it's a wave-based shooter.
But it is.
Where apparently you sort of build custom guns, like you've got a lot of different gun parts, and you can just kind of construct them together to make stupid guns. So it might be fun.
Oh, right. Yes, I have seen this.
And if I'm subscribed, I'm definitely going to give it a crack.
Yeah.
But I take some sort of umbrage with this use of the term "not another wave-based shooter" immediately followed by footage of a wave-based shooter.
I'm excited that we might get to play some Walkabout Mini Golf. The one thing I'll say there is, I'm guessing, and I don't know, but I'm guessing they'll give you the base game, which still comes with a few courses, but I'm guessing they'll just give you the base game and not give you any of the DLC.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the one advantage there is as long as one of your party members has the DLC, you can play the DLC. So I've got everything but the latest course, so you'll be able to try out some of the other like Labyrinth courses and Jules Verne stuff and other bits and bobs that they've added as DLC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good fun multiplayer game. I do recommend it, and so if you're going to get access to it, this is good news for me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to try that out in August, unless it's too hot for VR headsets, in which case we'll give it a couple of months. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty good subscription system they've got there. We'll see how it pans out. If the games start falling off a cliff quality-wise, obviously I ain't going to hang around, which is why I'm definitely not paying for a year up front. But we will see. Yeah, I've definitely missed some notable games over the last couple of years, so it will be good to sort of fill that library up for what is relatively a really cheap price. So, in other news, the Apple Vision Pro. Apple came on stage, the entire company.
Yep.
And they said, listen, we're taking our balls out, we're dropping them on the floor for everyone to observe, and we're saying, $3,500. Who's coming with me? And we all went, no. So let's hit the sort of main points of this. This is I have not seen more tech lobbed into such a constrained amount of space in any consumer product that has ever been announced. That is indeed real. I'm not going to go through all of the specs for this thing because it is, for starters, they've not confirmed any of it, and secondly, it all sounds mad. I mean, I'll start and finish the conversation on a 4K monitor in each eye, which, what?
Yes. Or at least effectively.
So, yeah, I mean, this thing is mad in terms of the tech. It's got, 300 cameras in it, and that whole thing where it does a virtual picture of your eyes when someone comes in and looks at you, and it just looks so uncanny valley that it made me actually uncomfortable.
I'm just going to get some big googly eyes and stick them to the front of my PSVR.
I mean, they've got to have, there must be, if they don't do this, they miss a trick, but there has to be some sort of DLC for that thing where you can buy, stupid eyes that you can put, eyes that wibble wobble. they can't just have your actual eyes there all the time. That'd be an absolute waste of it. You need Dame Edna glasses, that'd be a good one.
You would think so.
Yep. They need to get on that and announce it. Maybe then I'll be up for $3,500. No. Right. So here's the key points I've made about this, and I'm going to read these verbatim as we've got on the agenda. So it starts at $3,500. I'm
going to challenge one of them, but yeah.
Okay. There's been no mention of interfacing with a PC.
Right. Actually, I'm going to challenge two of them because PCs they don't care about because they're Mac people, and it will, if you look at your own Mac, it will automatically bring that screen up in a floating screen thing above above what you're doing.
I should clarify. Yes. What I mean is I can't boot up Steam and play Half-Life Alyx in this thing.
Right.
As far as they've mentioned.
Yes.
I should add,
yes,
this is all speculation at this point. They haven't hard announced any of this stuff.
No.
In the presentation they gave,
since their presentation,
there was no mention of VR games. They really wanted to hit home that this is a mixed reality headset.
Yeah.
And did not give any firm answers on whether this is going to have virtual reality games as well.
Right. Now, this is the one thing I'll challenge you on a little bit, because I was incorrect in what I said previously on the BRB UK podcast. After we looked at this and when we spoke about it a bit on the show, I said that this, they didn't really talk gaming in general, basically. But you did see, and they have sort of talked about a little bit afterwards, some mixed reality type stuff that's going on. So I kind of wrongly assumed, and we should possibly talk about terminology, but they are fudging the terminology a bit, because I thought of this as an augmented reality headset and therefore a bit of a mixed reality headset, because it was doing some VR and it's doing some AR. But it's been pointed out by cleverer people than me that this is in fact a VR headset, because there is no actual pass-through of information directly to your eyes in the same way as the Tilt 5 or whatever it is, basically. So there's no direct input to your eyes. It's all coming through cameras. So it's mixed reality in some ways.
That is mixed reality, though.
No, because if you look at a mixed reality headset in Tilt 5, that has your eyes looking directly at something and
through like
it
an
being
actual
augmented
screen.
in other ways. and transparency. And there's no transparency here. It's all going through cameras. So essentially, it's actually a virtual reality headset in the traditional definition of what we've had. So it's being a bit pedantic in saying
this is
that.
a semantic argument I'm not willing to have right now.
Yes. Yes.
But yes, I do understand your point.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, like, the VR games have not been really mentioned at all. This, to me, I've written here, this is effectively an augmented reality Mac. They really hammered home the fact they want you to do your office job on this thing.
But notice they strayed away from any of the traditional terminology with augmented reality. They didn't really mention.
They did.
They didn't mention mixed reality.
Thing, right? They don't like to be caught up in the existing terminologies. They like to make it out like they've come up with this themselves, because there's, of course, going to be a segment of the audience that fully will believe they have.
Yeah. Was it spatial computing, the terminology they used, I believe? Was that right?
Oh, something like that. The bit that
spatial
really...
something.
Tim, the bit that really drove me up the wall was when they came out and they said, think about how much money you spend on a 4K TV and monitors for your Mac.
Less than a third of the cost of that for my 65-inch TV. Yeah.
And your high-quality speaker system. And all this other stuff.
Right.
Now imagine that for $3,500, which is less than you'd have spent on all of that equivalent stuff if made by Apple, certainly.
That's not true.
Then you can get all of that. So, two things. Number one, you're 100% you hit the nail on the head there, Tim. That's absolute horse manure. Secondly, and this is my really valid point, what if my wife wants to watch TV with me?
Mm-hmm. That's the bigger problem. Like,
that would be an
my
interesting
TV,
scenario.
I can share with a whole room full of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's with more than one person. Let's just get the one extra person out of the way first. If my wife comes in and says, Kev, let's both watch Avatar in 3D on your virtual reality headset on your Apple Vision Pro. But we can't. So what do we have to do? We have to go to the Apple store and spend another $3,500 so that we can watch the same. And then
what if your kids wants to watch at the same time, Kev?
And then we'll be sitting there going like, right, have you got yours queued up to play? Yeah, I got mine queued up to play. Right, 3, 2, 1. It'll be like the start of these podcasts where we have to do the bloody mark thing. 3, 2, 1, mark. Right, have you got the credits rolling now? Okay, good. We're good. Let's just sit back, relax, and not see each other while we watch this film. And then, obviously, I
imagine there'll be some kind of app that lets you do that coordinates that for you and lets you kind of play one between. You'd hope so. Like, if not, then they're not thinking correctly and not doing things properly.
Yeah.
But even so, like you say, that doubles the cost. Like, and not only that, it adds another $3,500 for every person that you want to be actively doing something on one of these devices at once. So that's not great.
I think ultimately what we've just done here, because let's be honest, I might be the richest person in the world. I'm not putting my kids into an Apple Vision Pro, right? So I'm still going to have to go and buy that 4K TV and the surround sound system that they're saying I don't need anymore. So, like, if all that stuff exists anyway, I'm just watching TV with my family on a TV. Right? So that whole argument they made, out the window, stupidest thing I've ever heard come out of Tim Cook's mouth. So that's where I landed with that. And my concluding thought on the Apple Vision Pro here is that there's no real reason to talk more about this on a VR gaming podcast. It looks really cool.
Yep.
I'm not sure who it's for, beyond tech nerds with way too much money. And
it's for this is a prosumer. Yeah, this is a prosumer headset.
No, it's not
for your general consumer. It's not even for your high-end gamer at the moment.
I'm going to challenge you.
They're not even.
I'm going to challenge you. Prosumer technology. Okay. Prosumer technology is technology that professionals that work in high-paying jobs are going to find useful and increase make their workflow more efficient. This is not going to replace anyone's laptop.
No, that's fine. I will narrow that down slightly. Where I can see this having a use case, and the one person I know that's planning on buying one of these, is where you are providing tech support at a distance, and going on site for something is going to be difficult, and having a headset at each end is going to be useful for being able to see what they can see and tell them, and seeing what people are touching. And so for engineers speaking to engineers and not having to travel a distance to go and see that, basically.
Excuse me,
I can see the use case for that.
Year FaceTime came out. June 24th, 2010, Tim. People have been able to just have an iPhone and see what the other person can see. Okay.
I'm not saying for everyone, but I'm saying that is one use case where I can see that possibly having a real world business type application.
Listen, there's a ton of use cases for it, but they're all superseded by things that already exist.
But the other point is, this is a price point, and instead of selling dev kits for people that want to make things for this is the headset, this is the price point. If you want to get in on the ground level so that you can start developing apps for this and possibly even developing games, then you need to be buying in at this price point so that you can get in on the ground level and start doing that.
Yeah.
But as you say, like, without having the hardcore gamer audience to support it, and the only thing is that I think there's possibly built up enough of a hardcore Apple audience that will just spend any amount of money on the new Apple thing because that's what they do. And I think they're possibly betting on that. And that could well be the case. But as you say, there's not as many real world use cases that probably actually fit that. And it's a hard sell for me at the moment. It's a hard no for me at the moment, basically, because I can't even begin to think of affording that. You know what I mean? Like, I stretch myself to buy the PSVR 2. I'd break myself to buy a $3,500 headset.
Yeah, how about something 7 times more expensive that you can't play games on?
Exactly. Yeah. So no.
Yeah, this is not for us, obviously, and probably not for anyone in our audience, if I were to make a guess. I do think, I don't want to, I'm being very flippant towards it, obviously, mostly out of jest. It is one of the coolest pieces of tech that I've ever seen get publicly announced. I'm not denying that. I just don't know who it's for at this stage. And even the people that will claim, it's for me, I'll be like, is it though? Is it? I don't think it is.
I can tell you that I think know someone that's going to buy one of these, Kev.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear that person's reasoning. I know someone.
Yes.
Don't say
friend of the show, Dave, is planning on buying one. So yeah, I can say that with definite certitude. Okay. So yes.
Having yes. Okay. So now that you've told me who it is, I can fully understand that. He does seem the type. Okay. And all the best of luck to him. I hope he gets a lot of use out of it. I really do. That's not me being
probably won't.
Jokey, but you know, it's a lot of money for something that I'm not sure has a lot of value to people at the moment. However, if there's one thing I've learned since 2006, it's don't bet against Apple, because that's a dangerous
That's exactly
game
what
to
I've said
into.
before, and I'll say it again. Yeah.
Anyway, that's as much as we will mention about the Apple Vision Pro until they have something worth talking about in the VR, or specifically gaming space. That's news over and done with. So, well, I say news. Well, we've got Summer Game Fest happened. So upcoming games. We've got there were quite a few announcements for VR. We've kind of tried to cut that down a little bit here because there's some that is just whatever. It washes over I said to Tim when this was all going on, we were texting back and forth a little bit, and I was just like, honestly, I don't remember what I just saw. So they're throwing a lot of things at me, and I was just like, I don't know what just got announced. I can't remember. Yeah. So there are certainly a lot of VR games that just made no impact on me whatsoever. Others really did. But fortunately, Tim likes a lot more. What's a nice way of saying it? Tim's got a lower bar than me in terms of what he's going to get hyped for.
Lower bar of interest in VR. That's fair.
Yeah. So do you want to take the lead on this one, mate? And we'll go through some of the interesting stuff that got announced.
Right, and we wrote this a bit ago as well. For anyone that just pulling behind the Wizards curtain for a minute as well. Like, we have been planning to do this podcast for longer than it took us to actually get here. There was a few delays here and there. So there's a few things that were on this list that have actually already come out by now, so we don't have to talk about at all, and we'll talk about it later in the show possibly anyway. One of the ones that's standing out for me, especially because I believe that we might be able to play it together. I don't know. It's coming to Steam and it's coming to PlayStation. So I'm hoping this is one we can play together, Kev, because this is Crossfire Sierra Squad. Now, I don't know how much this appeals to you, but it is co-op, and it's got co-op levels.
Is this Crossfire as in the Korean game that Microsoft have been trying to push for the last few years, like Crossfire X and... Because didn't Remedy make a single-player campaign for it or something?
I don't know. I don't believe so, but I don't understand how it seems to have a similar name if that isn't the case. Console-wise, it's a PlayStation exclusive or a PSVR exclusive. So I don't understand why they seem to have similar names. But the Sierra Squad part of it is definitely, you know, in relation to this game. Yeah, maybe Mr. Google can tell us a bit more on that. But this is a military shooter, modern day, all realistic weapons. There is some single player in some of the stuff in Summer Games Fest. They showed off the kind of hardcore mode. It may not have been called hardcore mode, but realism mode or something, where both you and the enemies have a reduced amount of health. It's quite quick to kill, like the time to kill is quite quick type thing. And yeah, everything's a bit more realistic. I believe there's more kind of arcadey modes to it as well. I may be confusing my military shooters there because there was a couple of them as well. But this is one I've been keeping an eye on for a while. It looks really graphically impressive. There's some good sounding single player content, and it seems more focused on the single player and co-op than any multiplayer. So that stands out to me generally as well. And yeah, this is one that I'm definitely picking up day one, and will encourage you to do so as well, Kev, so that we can hopefully play it together.
It does look interesting, and I just looked it up, and it is part of that series.
It is part of that universe, is it? Okay, yeah.
Okay, moving on to the most important announcement. I Expect You to Die 3, Cog in the Machine.
Right.
Tim, I think we've had this discussion before. We have a shared love for I Expect You to Die 1 and, of course, 2.
Yes.
I can't wait.
And shell games in general, but especially those two. I am very jealous that this has been announced for Quest and we haven't heard anything for PSVR 2 yet. Also, they've been very quiet on what's happening with both of the original games being ported for, as in part 1 and 2, being ported for PSVR 2. I am very hopeful that this may not be a Quest exclusive in any way, and that we just haven't heard because PlayStation don't seem to be holding their cards close to their chest in terms of future releases for PSVR. So I'm hopeful we just haven't heard yet. I don't think they've announced a release date yet. I'm hoping that when that comes out, we might get confirmation of it coming to PSVR as well, or at least if there is any exclusivity, I'm hoping it won't be like one of those, they've got a year of exclusivity on the Quest type things, because, yeah, it's one of my favorite VR games. But I think I played the first one in the DLC and I haven't played the second one. So I'd be extra interested in the second one, particularly coming to PSVR 2 as well. So I'm hopeful that will happen.
It says this summer for Quest, so it's a very general ranged release date.
Yeah.
If I were to guess, obviously they're not a massive studio, so most likely the reason it's not been announced for PSVR 2 yet is that the port job is kind of taking a second place behind getting it out on Quest first, which is going to be presumably where the most sales are going to happen. So that would be my guess. I would not be surprised to see this come out on PSVR 2 6 months down the line.
I really hope
like that.
Will. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they need to get those first 2 games ported up at some point as well. But again, small studio.
Yes.
Unless they farm it out to another lot of devs, then who knows what happens with that. It's just one of those annoying situations where PlayStation really messed up by not bringing that library through. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. For those who don't know what I Expect You to Die is, it's a sit in one place game, or stand in one place game where everything you need is in arm's reach. And it puts you in the middle of a sort of James Bond escape situation where Blofield's just said, I'm going to leave you to die now. And you've got to figure out your way out as best you can. or sometimes you're trying to steal something, like you're pulling a heist, but from one standing position. And it's really inventive as to what it does. And if you happen to fail your attempt at escape, it will usually kill you in some ridiculous way, which sounds gross, but is actually really fun. Yeah, so that's really like 3. Very excited about that. Okay, so Assassin's Creed Nexus. So this is coming out on Quest this year. Again, no mention of PSVR 2 yet, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, it's been a few weeks since it's got announced. This, they didn't show, it's very key to note here, they did not show any gameplay at all in the trailer they showed. That was
although
100%
we have seen
CG.
We have seen, I think, 4 screenshots since that seem to be taken from gameplay perspectives. So
I've not seen those.
Yeah,
screenshots not going to give you a full taste of what that VR experience is going to look like. Though. So I'm a little bit concerned. Not the least of which because even for a CG trailer, that looked vomit-inducing, and I say that as someone who does not generally get motion sick. So fingers crossed that turns out to be something worth playing. However, I am not given their complete lack of visibility on it right now. I am not holding out high hopes.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that is not a Quest exclusive game. Their name, Ubisoft, literally means ubiquitous software. So that would hint at the fact that their name says that they should bring it to all platforms. That's all I'm saying.
And listen, Ubisoft are known for one thing, and it's making sure that every game, whether it should or shouldn't, will come out on every single platform. All right?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm hopeful that's the case this time. Especially as but for me, the one headline there is that Ubisoft are making a VR game again because they had been distinctly absent so far on PSVR 2. They usually support new hardware, and they haven't made any noise about supporting any of their previous games. They had Eagle Flight, I think it was almost launched, not quite launch game previously. I really hope we get a port of Star Trek. They haven't really said anything about VR for a couple of years. So the fact that they're making a VR game is actually the standout headline there. And I'm hopeful that it's one that they'll port across to PSVR 2 as well. So,
as a very quick aside, actually, I don't want to have a full conversation on this, but Insomniac, now under the PlayStation umbrella officially, put out some of the best VR experiences that have ever been released in the form of, God, what were they called? Stormland was the most recent one.
Yep.
There was a Cthulhu-esque game.
There was one before that one. Yeah, I can't remember the name off the top of my head either.
A wizard game that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head.
But they're generally highly spoken
fantastic.
of. And
like that Skunkworks team, whatever they were doing, I assume they've been absorbed into the 10,000 other projects that Insomniac have going on non-VR stuff. But I was so happy when they were doing that because they were putting out banger after banger, and they've just done nothing on PSVR 2 so far. So fingers crossed for you guys. You get something out of that.
Yeah. I've been crying out for a Spider-Man game. Are you saying about vomit-inducing? And that, I think, could really test the limits. But I really want to see it. I really that would be really great if we get a Spider-Man game. They've been very quiet on VR, as you said. I'm hopeful that's something that we will possibly hear about post Spider-Man 2, maybe even support Spider-Man 2, but I would think it would be more likely that we'll get an entirely separate game, even if it is Spider-Man related. I don't think they'll say anything until Spider-Man 2 comes out. But how good would be to have a tentpole Insomniac game, even if it's one of their previous ones or a sequel to one of their previous ones, where that is out in time for Christmas. Like, that would be a really good thing. I mean, it might be a bit late in that because it might take them a bit longer to develop post Spider-Man 2, but that would be great if they've got something like that. If it's not out in time for Christmas, I fully expect to see something sometime next year, basically. So we'll see, hopefully.
Yeah. Just to update on what the games that I couldn't remember the names were. Edge of Nowhere was the Cthulhu Mythos one. The Unspoken was the initially multiplayer, but eventually they released some single-player content for it, like Mage game, which was really fun. Feral Rights I never actually played, but seems to have good reviews, and obviously Stormland, which was just their kind of magnum opus. Yeah, anyway,
and none of them came to PSVR 1, so as far as I'm aware.
No, they released on Oculus Quest, not Oculus Quest, on Oculus Rift, and possibly on Steam as well. I'm not sure about that. So, what's coming up on PSVR 2, Tim?
We'll jump into the July releases. We did have some of June listed out. We've got through all of that already now. The one that's very much coming very soon and looking forward to quite a lot is from Endreams, and that's Synapse. That looks really good. Won't go into too much detail on that because that's literally just around the corner. Yeah.
The telekinesis,
and we'll probably
David
talk about that in
Jennifer
review.
Hale.
Indeed. Just adding good vocal talents to that. But there was a demo that did the rounds that went out to a lot of content creators, and that seemed to get quite a lot of buzz. Looks very good. It looks like it's going to play very well. I trust Endreams because they are a really high quality VR developer. This is a PSVR 2 exclusive, and it looks like it's going to be a real banger. Like, I haven't seen anyone else speak of it in this manner, but I think this is this generation's super hot in terms of, for the PSVR 2 at least. In terms of
them's fighting words.
Them's fighting words, but in terms of a heavily stylized game, mainly based around shooting as well, so that kind of lends itself to that description as well. But in terms of a kind of proof of concept of the system, the eye tracking, giving a lot of stuff in this as well, I think this is it's not necessarily going to be a system seller, but I think it's going to be one of the things where if you have the PSVR 2, you want to buy Synapse, basically. So
fingers crossed, yeah.
I can see that being a thing. And then we got one that I'm excited about a week after that. Operation Wolf Returns First Mission VR. So I think they're possibly stating in the title that this isn't the last game that we'll get in the Operation Wolf Returns lineup. I don't know if you played, I can't remember the name of the game now that I was about to mention it, but there was a game that was kind of based on Operation Wolf on PSVR 1, and it wasn't the greatest game in the world, but I really liked it just because it gave that nostalgia hit for Operation Wolf. Anyone doesn't know, Operation Wolf was an old school arcade game that had like Uzis strapped to the actual front of the arcade machine, and you're kind of scrolling shooter. This looks very much kind of a rebirth of that sort of formula. I've said quite a lot that we said that, you know, arcade experiences are where VR really shines. We said that earlier in the show type of thing as well, and I can see that working well for this. I'm a big fan of light gun games, and I can see this working really well. Whoever owns the license to Point Blank 1 and 2, I hope you're paying attention. Please bring that over as well. Thank you very much. But yeah, I think that's going to be good. And then a week or so later, on July 21st, we have Skater, which got delayed from this month to next month, to July now. But that's one where I think this is going to be quite hard. I think from what I've seen in previews, it's not going to be the easiest game, and it's going to have quite a steep learning curve in terms of getting to grips with how it all works. But I just want it for something they've showed off from demo gameplay, is there's a massive vertical ramp that you can go down with a series of big jumps as you go down. And I'm like, I'm on board. I'm buying it just for that, and that alone, that'll be fine. Thank you very much. I'm a bit worried that it might make me think I'm about to break my legs and be a scary experience. But I think it's going to be worth it just for that alone, basically. So I'm hoping it's not massively high priced, because I may not play the whole game to the full extent, but I think it's going to be an experience just for that sort of stuff, basically.
This looks... I'm watching a trailer for it now. This looks mad. But I can foresee a lot of people falling over playing this, losing balance.
Yep. And jumping into things and just generally falling over.
That is interesting.
I can see that being a lot of fun. And then we've got a few other games that haven't been given solid release dates as yet. I'll read through these fairly quickly, and I think some of them are going to be of interest to you, but if you want to talk about them a bit more, then let me know. But the ones I was interested in from everything we've seen: Vampire the Masquerade Justice, very much, and I think this is why you will be interested in it, Kev, very much taking a leaf out of and inspired by Dishonored in terms of the formula and the way it works and some of the powers and stuff that you have. But the dev literally listed Dishonored as one of its influences. A sneak 'em up vampire game in the Vampire the Masquerade universe, made by Fast Travel Games, who I trust to make decent games at least. And there's a few people that have seen this in an early preview when a load of content creators got to go to Fast Travel Games earlier in the year. And they were all singing its praises, basically. So
Timothy Hibbs.
Yes.
I will always, without question, have time in my life to try out a game based in the world of darkness, be it vampire, mage, werewolf, wraith, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't always get around to finding the time for them, but I will always want to. They're not always good. 9 times out of 10, those games are awful. I'm not going to get started on the visual novels. I own all of the Vampire the Masquerade visual novels on Steam, and I have started all of them and not finished a single one. It's been the absolute bane of my existence that there is a Wraith the Oblivion horror game on the Quest, and I've still not played it. I need to play it.
Okay.
I need to get around to that.
Go do that.
Vampire the Masquerade is obviously the granddaddy of that entire kind of setting. And yeah, I did see the trailer for this, and I'm very excited for it. That whole universe, I love. I have done since I was a kid, and me and my friends used to get around and like do tabletop role playing of. We did Vampire and Mage primarily. We got into Exalted after a while. We gave Werewolf a go at some point. We've done them all. Played those stories. I used to read the lore books like inside and out. It's my bread and butter, mate. But yeah, this game looks great.
And just for that extra level of Kev interest, like if they weren't already marketing this game almost directly at you, the fact that they quoted Dishonored as one of the influences in the gameplay.
I mean, you know very well.
I couldn't imagine a more Kev game.
Yeah, you know very well that's on my list of best games of all time. Dishonored is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's right up my alley.
Right, so rattling through a few that I think you'll be less interested in, but are nevertheless noteworthy. Resident Evil VR mode, Resident Evil 4 VR mode. Apparently, one of the best ever games. The remake of this was really highly thought of. I like Resident Evil Village enough that I'm definitely interested in this as well. So that's going to be a good one worth. But I nearly said picking up, but I meant picking up. So
yeah, you might want to get before you play it. just a coat.
So. Although I still don't understand how you block a chainsaw with a small hunting knife. I don't get that. It's a bit weird, but I'll go with it.
Listen,
I'll allow it. But okay.
As long as it is more survivable than when you do it in... Because I haven't played the remake. I played the demo of the remake.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, you can parry with this knife. That's pretty fun. And then it snapped like after 2 parries. Oh. Okay. Well,
okay. I didn't know that was a thing either. So that might explain
if that's a thing in VR as well. I can't imagine anything scarier in VR actually than that chainsaw bloke coming at you and you going, yeah, do you chainsaw? Yeah. And then suddenly a knife snaps and there's a chainsaw coming at your face.
That
would be a falling over moment.
Right. They also announced the original Fisherman's Tale, and I think I bought the first game and didn't play it on PSVR. I like the look of the original Fisherman's Tale more than the another Fisherman's Tale which came out recently, so I'm glad that's coming over as well. Arashi Castles of Sin Final Cut, again a game that I didn't pick up, or this is a game I didn't pick up rather on the PSVR one, but was fairly highly thought of fairly late in the life of PSVR 2. It's getting a massive graphical upgrade and looks really interesting. So I'm interested in that. We saw a bit more of Arizona Sunshine 2. I'll reserve judgment until we see gameplay.
Yeah, the first one was okay.
Other games. Yeah. There's a few other games on this list that I had put on there. But again, we'll probably come back to it when we've got a bit more information. The one I did want to talk to you about, though, and did want to discuss with you, is Bulletstorm VR. Because that was one of my biggest surprises. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, me neither.
Very happy for the return of
Listen, Bulletstorm was one of my favourite games that came out in that year. It's stupid in a brilliant way.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Bulletstorm. Yeah. The promotional material for that game made it sound like, oh god, it's like flipping the Duke Nukem guys came and wrote a game again. This is going to be unbearable. But it turned out to be perfect in terms of its like ridiculous dialogue to ridiculous action.
Yeah.
And then never taking itself seriously. It was fantastic. I love Bulletstorm. I've played it probably 5 times.
Kicking or whipping people into cactuses never got old in that game.
And do you know what?
It never get old.
That's the thing, is that it was always kind of an arcade game, right? And we've been saying multiple times this show, VR really sings when you're doing like an arcade style game. So this entire idea of like being able to belt people into the environment and score points, perfect. I've played games that have been converted from existing shooters before, like Serious Sam. It's not always perfect, but they can be pretty good. So as long as this is at a certain level of quality, it doesn't need to be perfect, but like that's never going to be. It wasn't designed for VR to start with, but yeah, they could have a winner on their hands here.
As you say, it's the right style of gameplay to put into VR. I also think it's the right kind of age of game to be converted over as well, in terms of like that was a good era for shooters. This is a well-made well-designed arcade shooter, and I just think it's perfectly rife for adaptation into a VR universe as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think I picked up the game when it was remastered. I don't know if I definitely paid for it. I may have picked it up through if it was released on PlayStation Plus or something. I don't know where I got access to it, but I never really played through it again, and I will do so. Putting it in VR gives me an excuse to do so because it's a slightly different experience. I'm very much looking forward to going back into it though, so I'm really hopeful that will be really good. Yeah, there was a couple of other things that were announced after Summer Games Fest as well. I'll just quickly mention particularly Wanderer, the Fragments of Fate, which is a remake of Wanderer, which again is one that came out late in the life cycle of PSVR 1 that I didn't pick it up, but they're remaking it from the ground up to be better suited for PSVR 2. This is the type of thing where I'm hopeful that this is not only the sign that this is good for this game, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a time-traveling adventure, a bit like, what's the TV series, Sam Beckett? Quantum Leap, a bit like Quantum Leap, where you're going into different people and you've got to kind of figure things out of why you're there and what's going on. It seems to be a bit of a kind of mystery threaded together with you jumping into different time points. It was generally highly regarded, but I think the graphical fidelity was one of the things that let it down. And I think that's one of the things that I particularly mention this because it's interesting from the fact that there's a lot of games that we're not seeing come to PSVR at the moment, PSVR 2, that were PSVR 1 games that you would expect to have some sort of upgrade path or something. But this game might help explain not only why we haven't got those yet, but why that's a good thing. Like, if they are treating some of the PlayStation first-party titles and other third-party games like this in this manner and creating a whole new version to upgrade for PSVR 2 to take advantage of the haptics, to take advantage of the enhanced graphical fidelity, the foveated rendering, and all the other things that come with PSVR 2, then take all the time you need. We've talked about games and stuff like that, but I haven't particularly mentioned that I have been overwhelmed with games for PSVR 2. I still have a list of at least half a dozen games that as soon as they go on sale, I will pick up at some point for PSVR 2, and I'm in no rush to do so, and I can afford to wait for them to go on sale because I've got so much in my library that's keeping me busy at the moment. I still haven't played one of the games that I bought on day one. I still haven't played Demio because I want a good 4 to 8 hours to sit through and play enough of it to kind of like, and I haven't had that opportunity where there hasn't been a game that I wanted to go to first and foremost above it. You know, like I haven't wanted games, and if that's the approach they're taking, I can kind of see and set the sense of it, and the treatment of this game makes me more hopeful for the future of PSVR 2 going forward as well. They also mentioned a very silly game called Tiger Blade that I'm very much looking forward to from what they showed. Looked very silly, about the last tiger cub on Earth and a load of gangs fighting over it. I think that's coming out of a Singaporean studio, I think it was. But yeah, looks interesting. I'll definitely keep my eye on it. But the other big one that they kind of did say is definitely coming to PSVR 2 was announced in Summer Game Fest, but they confirmed it later on in the blog is definitely coming to PSVR 2. And that is Seventh Guest. And I'm very excited for the fact that they're making a new version of Seventh Guest.
It's a game that I've just got.
They just came well out of left field.
Yeah.
It's a game that I got an affinity for. My friend had it on PC. It was one of the first PC games I ever played.
Yeah.
And me and him spent like a weekend or two trying to get as far as we could in the game when we were quite young at the time, so it was quite difficult for us. And it wasn't exactly scary, but the whole rotoscope stuff and stuff like that, the presentation, it's one of those games that stands out in my mind as when I saw it, I could not believe how good the graphics were, basically. And it looks really dated and stuff now, but just being able to dip back into that environment in VR is something I'm very much looking forward to, basically.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I had a massive double take when they said Seventh Guest out loud. Right, so that's our upcoming games that got announced that we wanted to discuss. So we can move on now to what we have been playing. I have a relatively short list, as I said up front. I was mostly playing games without a box on my face recently, but I did make some time to finally try the Pistol Whip demo. It's only one level that I played, so I can't really speak authoritatively to it, but it seems fun. People love this game, obviously, so I have no doubt it's actually got
it's highly rated.
Definitely seems like something that's going to knacker you out if you play a few levels of it, which is good. But it's always nice to have the games that feel like exercise, like with Beat Saber being another example.
Yep.
The music in it, the one level I played absolutely slapped, so that's good. It's always useful for those kinds of games. So yeah, it's something that I never really wanted to fork out over 20 quid for, but now that it's come in this subscription package, I'm happy to give it a proper go.
I will wait for your opinion on that one, but that's one of the ones on my list of games that I will pick up when it's on sale, possibly. I'm not as musically inclined as you. I haven't tried it, but I like the look of it, and I've heard very good things about it. I actually think I'd prefer this to Beat Saber, possibly, as well. So we'll save the discussion for later, but I'll be interested to see what you think of it, and that might encourage me to pick it up when it does go on sale at some point as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, it felt brilliant. Like, just the actual kinetics of it really felt good from the brief amount I played. But I will report in next time with hopefully more of an experience, because I'll have played the full game. Won't be news to anyone else. Everyone else who wants it has already played it, obviously. But for you and I. As per usual, like whenever I feel the need to slap a VR headset on my head, I typically play one of two things, which is either ForeVR Pool or Golf Plus. ForeVR Pool being the best pool simulator that I've ever come across. Still very annoying, and I fully understand the reason why. You can't have one hand, like you hold one hand in front of you for where the cue's going to rest on your hand. The other hand, you want to put it behind you to do a proper cueing motion. You can't, because the headset doesn't know where the handset is anymore. So instead, you're doing it kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm doing this on camera. You're doing it like this. With both hands in front of your face. It feels a little bit weird, but once you've actually kind of wrapped your head around that and accepted that's the way it works, it's such a good pool simulator. And unlike snooker and pool simulators, like video games that have been coming out for years, like you can actually, because you can see everything in 3D, you can move your head around the table. It gives like a proper feeling of being on the table, and the locomotion controls to actually get around the table and look around are really good. So, and it also has a weird feature where you can just turn YouTube on the TV, but like because you're in a bar, and you can like turn the big TV on and put YouTube, like pick a YouTube video or something. It's very quite cool. But yeah, just in case you like, I actually want to watch this week's Kind of Funny Games cast while I'm playing pool or something. Or BRB UK. Let's sit down and listen to Tim, Dan, and Coleman have a chat about video games while I play some pool. Yeah, so that's it's something I always go back to. It's really, really good. And Golf Plus, which is just the best golf simulator I've come across, and I really enjoy playing that.
Ooh. Is that a full, like a proper, not just pitch and putt type thing, but a full
full golf actual golf courses?
Thing,
yeah, and there's loads of DLC for it to buy, like some of the most famous courses in the world. So yeah, it's really, really, really good. Proper hard though.
No golf games announced yet for PSVR. Everybody's Golf is one of the first party things that's still missing in action. They have announced a pool game, but it's not that one, and there's no release date yet. I think something like Black Ball Pool or something. But yeah,
Forever, which is a play on the word forever, but is actually like ForeVR.
ForeVR.
It's more to do with the VR stuff than it is like indicating a time thing. But they've also made a darts game. I've not given that a try, but Forever Darts exist as well. But yeah, the pool one's really good. I also have bought Red Matter 2. I got it while it was on sale, and I had a coupon.
Yeah.
So I got it quite cheap.
Right.
So I've bought Red Matter 2. I know it's got really good reviews. I have not got around to playing it yet.
Well, I'll be interested when you play that as well. As I said, I absolutely love that on PSVR 2. It set a new benchmark for graphical fidelity. I hear the Quest version is very good as well. So yeah, I'll be keen to hear what you have to say on that.
So that's me. What have you been chewing on in your VR diet of late, Mr. Tim?
First and foremost, I'm going to go with the two games that I got supplied review codes for. I have spoken about them briefly on BRB UK. but I can talk about them a little bit more having played a bit more. I can also, I think, at least speak in terms of giving them review scores. So the first one there is Sea Smash VRS, which was new out last week, or this week just about. And that is a futuristic take on squash, basically. There's some single player content that goes with it that I described on BRB UK, so I won't go into that entirely. But you're basically almost got like a puzzle type mode where you've got to get through different levels as quickly as possible. And you've got a succession of different routes that you can choose around different planets. They call them different orbits. There's 5 different things, and then there's a boss fight at the end. And all of that works really well. I've been through it all entirely once when I talked about it on BRB UK. I've subsequently gone back to it and trying to get... I'm moving on as long as I've got a C grade, which is the kind of... It's A, B, C, or D. D's kind of a fail and starts eating into your bonus time. So I've been trying to make sure I get at least a C grade on every level before I progress. There's quite a few levels where I've actually got A's or B's. I'm only going with C if the level's annoying me a bit and I just want to move on and carry on a bit. But the only thing I'll say there that I didn't get to say previously is that there seems to be a little bit, and this could just be, player-based and individually based, but there does seem to be a bit of discrepancy between what they describe as easy, medium, and hard levels. Some of the easy ones seem harder than some of the hard ones. And so some of them only take 5 seconds and some of them take a minute. And there doesn't seem to be a general kind of pattern to exactly what's going on there. That could just be, you could get lucky on a hard level and you could be unlucky on an easy level. So there is an element of that, and I'll have to play a bit deeper in to see if that's a problem. But overall, I like what they've done with the single player game. It's replayable. There's a Zen mode where you can fail and retry. And there's a slightly more hardcore mode where anytime that you fail, that's it. You go back to the beginning of the game. That's really tricky. And I have not made it very far in that mode yet. I need to get better at the game until I do. I've mainly been concentrating on the Zen mode and just getting better scores in doing that. There is also 4 different modes of that are currently available in the multiplayer. They've actually updated it already this week. So since I spoke about it on BRB UK, there's actually been an update that's changed the way that kind of presents and changed the way that you can do rematches. So there was a bit of a complaint that people didn't know, and it's one of those things. I just happened to go on it to start with, so I knew that it did this from the word go, so it's never been a problem for me. But you've got the 4 different modes, and you can actually pick all 4 of them and then go into them, and then it will just find someone that's playing one of those 4 modes, and you can pick a game. It's now got it so that it defaults to all 4 of them being highlighted, so when you go in, it will just do that, rather than you having to highlight all 4 of them. So you can unselect ones rather than having to select them all to have them activated. It makes a bit more sense, and if you don't realise that was the case, it makes it a bit easier to realise that is the case. Also, when you're replaying a level, usually, or previously rather, and in preview and since release, it was just giving you the option to replay in the mode that you're already in. Now it gives you the option of replaying the mode you're already in, or giving a rematch to the person you're playing against, but in one of the other modes. So it will randomly highlight one of the other 3 modes that you aren't currently in. And if you want to, you can just rematch with the same person, do that. It makes it easier to stay rematching even when you want to change modes, basically, which is quite good. And it just means that it's easier to get through rematches. I quite like the changes they've made there. They both make sense to me. I'll very quickly run through the 4 different types of modes, especially as I couldn't remember one of the 4 modes when I was speaking about before. Now, I couldn't remember Quick Shot now, so I'll describe that first and foremost. Quick Shot is a mode where you and the opponent are on the opposite sides of the court. There is a square which increases in size as you go, and the smaller target you hit, the more points you get. And it's the first person to get to, I think, 10,000 points, and you get, I think, maybe as much as 2,500 points for hitting the smallest square. So you can actually get through that quite quickly, but you're rallying back and forth, and you've got to try and make sure that you're passing your hit through that square to get those points. And there's a kind of back and forth as to, there's a tactic to make sure that you're forcing the rally so that it's difficult for your opponent to return it where the square's going to be. And then you can kind of control the rally a bit more so that it's harder for your opponent to score points. And that's probably the mode that takes the most skill out of all the ones that's available. It's also possibly, and this may be a kind of a criticism of me, but it's also possibly the one that I'm worst out of the 4 modes. And that's possibly why I forgot it. I've probably played it as much as the other ones now to try and get better at it, but I'm still probably the one where I've lost more often than I've won, whereas the other modes I've tend to win more often than I lose, basically. The basic, and I'll try and rattle through this fairly quickly, but the basic mode is for I think it's, what's it called, 1-on-1 or something like that. There's the base mode that was in the original demo as well, is where you've got a wall of panels behind you. You start with a panel that's split into 3, and your opponent has to hit the panels behind you, and you have to hit panels behind your opponent. As soon as those 3 disappear, another wall appears that's in more sections. So I think it's divided. There's 2 big sections in the middle and then 4 sections either side. And then when you get through that wall, there's another wall. So it's just a matter of you destroying more panels behind your opponent than your opponent destroys panels behind you. Whoever has more panels wins, basically. The second mode is a thing called Firewall, where there's an actual wall of panels between you and your opponent. The more panels you hit, the further it goes away from you and the closer it gets to your opponent. If you highlight all the panels in your color, you win automatically, but that's quite hard to do because some of the panels are very big. It's a kind of odd-shaped wall where there's big panels in some of the corners and then smaller panels in the middle and the top. And yeah, it's just a matter of trying to dominate as many of those as possible. If you are in control of more of them than your opponent, then you're racking up points quicker. It's usually a points victory, but there is a way to win before you get there. There's another mode called Body Shot, which is in a much thinner corridor than the other modes. And it's just you and your opponent. You have a ball each, and one of the balls has to strike your opponent to score a point. And it's the first to 5 points.
Gotcha.
That's probably my favorite mode and the one that I have been most successful at. One may feed into the other there. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, that's the mode where I've had a lot of fun, basically.
Tim's favorite mode, the one where you actually got to hit someone.
Yeah, but there's a kind of power shot mechanic in the overall game that you can use strategically in all the different modes. It comes in particularly strategic in that as well. Like, there's a real cat and mouse thing where an opponent did this to me first, so I've tended to do it back to other people, but you kind of pull your ball towards you and then hit it at your opponent. And there's a whole cat and mouse thing where you wait until your opponent has hit their ball at you and then randomly wait until you've even picked up your ball to start hitting it at them. And it really confuses people, and there's a whole back and forth. And then suddenly you just pick it up and smash it at them before they get a chance to react as well. So there's a whole, as I said, cat and mouse, strategic element to that that's kind of not really present in the other modes. But I really just enjoy the kind of psychology in the back and forth of that. And yeah, really enjoying it overall. There is, I think, having played through it a bit more and played through the different modes and played, that they've said there's an infinity mode coming and there's a co-op mode coming, and I can see the co-op mode adding another sort of dimension to that, but I don't entirely know how that's going to work. I'm guessing it's going to be more like the single player, but you're working together, and possibly where there's a mode where you've got to kind of keep a rally going back and forth. But then I don't see how the smash mechanic is going to work with that. I'm not sure, save judgment rather than just kind of making criticisms of something that doesn't exist yet kind of thing. But I think the game does need a bit more to it. It feels a little bit thin on content overall. As such, as much as I love the base game and as much as I love the multiplayer, I think it does need that more content to sustain the kind of interest in general audience, that it will need to not suffer the same fate as Spark did previously, where that kind of went by this wayside. I'm very hopeful that this is. That's why I've been evangelizing about the game. I think overall at the moment, I will give it a 4 out of 5 on our scale, which is still a great game. It's still really enjoyable. I still really like it. I just think it just falls slightly short of that greatness to push it into a 5 out of 5. I'm hopeful that with the content they've announced, with the fact that they have been updating it already and have already pushed a significant upgrade that kind of upgraded a lot of the way the game works, with a few more quality of life upgrades like that going forward and with a bit more content, I think it could push it up into the 5 out of 5 for me. But at the moment, as it stands, it's a 4 out of 5 on our scale. But that comes with the caveat of I've literally played it every day that I can, despite the fact it's really hot at the moment. I think it could be something that helps me get in shape at the moment as well, which is not a bad thing for it being extra hot. But as we said, like being extra sweaty in a headset is possibly, not fun. Not the greatest thing overall, basically. So, hey.
I was going to say, these 4 out of 5 games, especially in VR, doesn't necessarily mean that they're not things you're going to play all the time, right? I think you can have a really, really solid and fun 4 out of 5 game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, the other one that I got for review, and I'm conscious of the fact there's 2 other games I want to talk about. I had other games on this list. I'm not even going to mention them because there's 2 other games I want to concentrate on. The other game that I got a review copy for was Budget Cuts Ultimate. It has my name in the title, being in Ultimate, so I should like it even more. Anyone doesn't know, this is Budget Cuts 1 and 2 added together. I still haven't finished the game, so I'll hold off giving it a full overview, and that's why I can skip over it a little bit quicker. Knowing that you've played, I believe, Budget Cuts 2 and possibly Budget Cuts 1 as well.
Both, yeah, I've played both.
This stitches them together into one whole. So you have to play through all of 1 to get to 2. And they've also, I don't know, was the arcade game introduced with Budget Cuts 2? Or is that something they've added for this combined package? I'm not sure. Was there an arcade game in either of them previously?
Doesn't ring a bell. I've only ever played the campaigns.
Yeah, I think that might be added. In the screen, there's a loading screen type thing that you load into before you go into the game, and that's got an arcade machine that you can go and play, and it gives you an actual score, and there's a high score table and all that type of stuff. I've only played through 1 level of that, so again, I'll come back and talk about that with a bit more authority when I've had time to do so. I have just got to the point where I've played through all of Budget Cuts 1, which I enjoyed, but felt it slightly outstayed its welcome in the fact that it didn't really mix up the gameplay too much towards the end of the game. So it felt a bit... I was really enjoying it at first. I really enjoyed the humor. I like the world. I like the presentation. And you doesn't know, it's a kind of sneak 'em up game where you can destroy the robots that are kind of guarding areas and stuff like that. It's an office-based environment where all the human workers have been placed by robots. Also, on a complete side note, but I really appreciate the fact that the PR people responded to me in character. So they talked about them being a total, definitely human worker and all this type of stuff when they emailed me. I really appreciate that. That's really good and really works with their universe.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, as I said, I really enjoyed it up to a point. I thought, as I said, it could mix things up a bit more in the end game. And it felt like it was stretching things out and stretching things to the point of breaking a little bit. The last kind of level of what would have been Budget Cuts 1 kind of was okay, but up to that point, it felt like it had slightly outstayed its welcome a bit. The thing I've just got to is I've just got to through the first level or so of Budget Cuts 2, and I had to kind of check out that was definitely the case. I assumed it was from what I'd seen. And they put out a patch this week which apparently increased the graphical fidelity, although I find that quite hard to notice, although obviously I didn't see the original, so I don't know how much that's boosted it.
It's a very art style-y game that's got an awful lot of white in it. So it's not one of those things where an increase to graphical performance is going to really be noticed. Yeah, and I found that hard to really see what's going on. The one thing that I think, having played through 1 and having just got to the bow and arrow particularly, so I've just picked up the bow and arrow and I'm just playing through the first level with the bow and arrow. And slight spoilers if you haven't played, that there is a bow and arrow in the second half of the game. But for as much as I wanted them to mix up the gameplay in the first one, I don't think they've done that terribly successfully,
because one of my criticisms of the game overall is even further just saw a cattail get in the way there. Has even further kind of come to the fore because as much of a problem as it was, and even heightened by the use of the bow and arrow. And I think that is the problem, is that the inventory system, having the having the ammo, and in the first half of the game this was all knives and scissors, but when you get to the bow and arrow it's all the bolts that you're firing through the bow and arrow. Having that inventory system house all of your ammunition, I think, is a big mistake. I think they should have had a separate inventory system where you could just pick up objects and put things like key cards and the other things you needed to traverse the environment into that system. And I think all the ammo should have been entirely separate. That way you could pick up more ammo. The combat would have been less cumbersome and less of a problem because you're not having to reach into your inventory system. If you miss with the first knife that you're throwing at a robot, you then have to pull up your inventory system, pull out another knife and throw that one at them. And you're kind of having to do a weird ducking and diving, moving your head out the way so they don't shoot you sort of dance while trying to do that as well. So it becomes really extra cumbersome on top of that, basically. And that's even more highlighted by the time that you get to the bow and arrow. If you miss with the first arrow, it would be much better if you could just fire as many arrows as you wanted and you could pick up as many arrows as you could find in the environment rather than going, oh, I left that pair of scissors and that knife back there, and now I've only got these arrows, so I've got no way of actually dealing with anything that comes up close to me easily. And I just think the choice of how the inventory system works actually makes the game less fun than it could be. And okay, it makes it so that it's a bit more trial and error and that you're more likely to die and extends the life of the game, but at the harm of actually making the game not as good as it could be. As a result of that, so far, it's going to have a hard time pushing me from the 3 out of 5 that I've definitely drifted down to at the moment, basically. Don't want to definitively give it a score when I've still got time to go, but yeah.
Yeah, fair. I mean, my thoughts on it at this point in time, I haven't played it in 3 years because it came out on Oculus 3 in 2020, I believe. I'm pretty sure that was one of my pandemic games, was Budget Cuts 2. So I don't remember it being, and this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, I don't remember it being any more cumbersome inventory-wise than other games of a similar ilk. And that's not to say that I thought it was okay. I just don't remember it standing out because I think you and I can both agree we've played enough of these games that the inventory systems are always bad. Universally, they need improvement. I don't remember that one standing out as bad, but that's because obviously it could just very well have been in amongst a lot of games with poor inventory handling.
And I think that's part of the problem. It coming out now on PSVR 2, and just for the record, Budget Cuts 1 did come out on PSVR 1, but I didn't play it. And then Budget Cuts 2 didn't come to PSVR 1. So I think that because I have played games in the interim and particularly recently on PSVR 2 that have much better inventory systems, that this stands out as a problem, basically.
Yeah.
And I think we've solved VR inventory systems to a better degree than this game has done. And I think that's something that could and possibly should have been updated when bringing the ultimate version across to PSVR 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
The other one I will gloss over very, very quickly, but just to say, just before the show, I played the demo of Masternoid. It is a Arkanoid style game where you have a gun and you are shooting a ball out of it, and then when that ball bounces back to you, you shoot it back at a target that you're doing in front of you. It's all a bit more 3D than Arkanoid because it's a 3D environment. I absolutely loved this game so much after playing the demo that I purchased it immediately.
I have a question.
Question from Mr. Kev. Yep.
When the ball in Arkanoid goes to the other side of the screen, you have to move your block over to reach it. What are you doing in this?
In a similar manner, and I should have possibly mentioned this when I was talking about C-Smash VRS, but there is some physics fudging that is good game design in both C-Smash VRS, where the ball is slightly attracted to you, and that's a similar case in this as well. The ball slightly comes back to the middle of the screen, is slightly attracted to where your gun goes. The extra thing that Masternoid has as a nice little touch is you can just bounce it, and you can bounce it off walls, and it's a weird kind of isometric, and isometric's the one word, but I can't think of a better word, but there's a weird kind of vanishing point that doesn't, it's not like a smooth vanishing point that goes to a point. It's kind of weirdly arced, that there's weird angles that you're bouncing off the side walls and bouncing off the bottom walls. So you can't exactly trust where it's going, and it's a weird thing to that. But to kind of get around that and to try and make everything a bit easier and to give it an extra level of skill, as you are launching the ball back, you can, with a little flick of the wrist, you can make it arc in a certain direction. And adding that level of fidelity to it just really helps give it that extra skill level, that extra kind of feeling of control. And oh my God, does this work well? It also kind of ramps up when you're got like different bonuses that you can unlock just from hitting things. You get like a overtime multi-ball type thing where it gives you extra balls if you're picking up the bonuses. When you hit or destroy a block, if you then go back to the same point, it will give you a bonus kind of thing that stacks, and you can get up to 3. I haven't had more than 3 balls, but you can have 3 balls at once. That gets a bit hectic because you're then trying to keep track of all the 3 balls and where they're going and all the angles they're bouncing off these walls. But then you can also get bonuses on top of that will do a thing where it has a sphere that traps everything and the balls are just bouncing around in that sphere. It has a laser where you can just point and shoot and things and destroy blocks.
Okay, I think we can summarize this by saying very much a modern day VR Arkanoid, which is appealing to me, I must say.
Yeah, and it's like £12. I don't know if it's came out on PSVR and it just kind of shadow dropped out of nowhere. And I don't know if it's on Quest, but if it is, I highly recommend it wherever you can seek it out, basically. Also, the developer literally said, when I mentioned on Twitter that it had come out, the developer literally tweeted back to me and said, "Thanks for mentioning our game. We're really bad at marketing. We haven't mentioned this game's coming out yet." So I'm extra keen to actually give them a bit of marketing. So please go and check it out. There's a free trial that you can play on PSVR 2. I highly recommend playing the free trial. And if you like it, the final game's only £12. I'm also currently number 10 in the world on the first level. So, you know, that helps my enjoyment of it as well, possibly. So, yeah.
I can't see any mention of it on the Quest store, which is sad.
Okay.
But yeah, that
I
does
will
sound
ask
cool.
him if he has any intention of doing that now that I follow him on Twitter, and I will see if that's something. But yeah, definitely worth one looking out for. Hopefully it seems like a small developer, so hopefully that's one that might be coming to other places in the future as well. I highly recommend C-Smash VRS, and I highly recommend Masternoid. Budget cuts I like, but it's a more difficult game to recommend in the current world. But
I mean, it is a
3 good games.
3 and 5-year-old game for budget cuts now, I think.
Yes.
Off the top of my head. So yeah, cool. Well, that was a lengthy show, but you know, we do these so infrequently that we do have quite a bit to talk about. And we could probably talk about some other things, but we've got to save something for the next thing. So yeah, I mean, thanks to all of the verbers out there who have verberated with us through it and are back to talk about listen to VR stuff. It's good to get out there and talk about this stuff because there's not a lot of it, frankly. Not a lot of people talking about it. So it's always nice to catch up with Tim as well. And we will have another podcast at some point in the not too distant future when there is a few more things to talk about. I'm personally going to invest a lot more time into Diablo 4, but as things wind down over the summer, there's less games coming out on the traditional 2-dimensional screen that I'm interested in picking up. So until the end of August, at least, when things go berserk again. So I think I'm going to have a pretty good July, August of time for VR. So we'll see what I can squeeze in, especially with this MetaQuest Plus subscription kicking in as well.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks to everyone, and thank you to Tim, and I shall say goodbye.
Thank you very much for putting up with me, Kev. But yeah, it was really nice to catch up with you. We had a lot to catch up about, but yeah, hopefully we'll have another show out this year as well. 3 shows in 1 year, Kev. Can you imagine?
Madness. Right, cheers all. Bye.
Your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarrel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
Okay. Yeah, but obviously, like we didn't record a podcast after I played Half-Life Alyx, which to this day is kind of what I define as just the experience for VR. Like, if you want, that's the most complete game I've ever played.
Yeah.
And I really like